Let's do it.
Boom. Okay, admit all. Woohoo! Here they go. Whoa!
Hello.
Hey everyone! I love that moment when I hit admit all and suddenly there's a gallery of people.
Wow. Look at all these people.
Hey,
Beau.
Matt. Hey, Beau.
Hello.
Woohoo!
So many familiar
showtime.
faces.
Howdy.
Bonjour, bonsoir.
Oh,
Bonjour,
bonjour.
bonjour, bonsoir.
Boa noite.
Comment allez-vous?
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Bien,
Everybody.
bien. Et toi?
Bien, bien,
Ça va?
gracias.
Ça va? Ça va? Ça va, merci?
Oui, ça va, ça va.
Hey, for anybody who's
Love it.
a Japanese speaker, Tyson to Moshimasu desu ka onegai itashimasu. Domo no
That was-
Sönke yokoso.
That was
네.
awesome. 네. 안녕하세요. 네. 안녕하세요.
Someone's got some background music going there.
Theme song.
Yeah, theme song, party.
Oh,
안녕하세요,
my
한치.
goodness. 네, 안녕하세요.
안녕하세요.
반갑습니다. So many familiar faces. Hey, so the shared graphs aren't up yet, so I am gonna go ahead and link. Here's just a scratch pad. It's just a public graph that I have open. If you want to sort of use it as a scratch pad, or you can write in your own graph as well. This is amazing. What happened to the music though?
All right, we have to freestyle.
Where's Norm? We need Norm. Normanchella freestyles. He freestyles about Rome.
What an exciting moment. I love that moment that suddenly the gallery is full of familiar faces. This is so much fun.
Yeah, boom.
Old friends and familiar faces this afternoon.
Uh-oh. I know that voice.
I used to I used to play for this old big band singer, you know. I was played in a showroom where we'd have a different act come in every couple of weeks, 6 nights a week. This one guy would always open the show, every show. He said, I see some old friends and familiar faces out there this evening. Where are you from, sir? You know. So that's my lounge singer patter.
And what a list of where are you from. I'm just scanning the chat links. We got Poland, Germany, New York, Canada, South Africa, Brooklyn, Austria, London, a gentleman who is a Brazilian in Portugal.
Awesome.
Explain that one. I want to hear that
Germany.
Don't
Sweden,
forget France.
Chicago, Paris, Australia, Kansas, the jungles of Mississippi. I love it.
Holy shit.
Well, our number of participants seems to be stabilizing. We have a few more people coming in, but we're at 12:35. Why don't we just sort of take a moment and lay out the framework for today? So Matt and McKinley and Beau and I were chatting, and there's really three big things that we want to do today with this very large group. The first thing we want to do is we want to just talk a little bit about Rome Book Club and its history, because there's a mixture of people here with different levels of experience, and we kind of want to let everybody know how special this group is, because we're really proud of all the work that's been done it's been 9 months since the opening of Rome Book Club #1. And we've made huge progress since then. And so we want to talk a little bit about that path and how it led us here. In the second portion of today, we're going to give just a brief roadmap for what is to come in the next week or two. And both Beau and I will be sharing some specific landmarks for the two groups. And then in our third segment, we're going to talk about community. And in fact, we have a spotlight special guest from the community, RJ Nestor. And we're really looking forward to talking with RJ in a little more detail about some resources that he's put together that he's going to share with the entire group. So that's our thumbnail agenda. I mean, those three things, we'll probably try to wrap that up in about 90 minutes, but it might take a little longer. And if need be, we'll just hang out and talk and chat with people until people feel like important questions are answered. But I think we were going to start out by talking about the history of book club, right? And so,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so yeah. And I kind of feel like maybe we could ask Matt McKinley to tell us just a little bit about sort
Yeah,
of what
Matt.
you've seen over the last 9 months and kind of what your original vision was and how this diverges or converges with what you were thinking about way back in August of 2020 when you took on the leadership of the very first Rome Book Club. We read Stephen Johnson's book, Where Good Ideas Come From, which was recommended to us by Connor. So that was sort of that was our starting point. Matt, what are your thoughts at this junction?
Sorry, I muted everyone. Just
All good.
get rid of the background noise.
Good morning, everyone, or afternoon. Firstly, just a quick qualification. My son, it's 5 a.m. here, and if my son, who's about 9 months old, wakes up, I'm gonna have to quickly go get him. So if I do have to duck out quickly, just that's the cause. Not that I want to leave you guys here, but yeah. So the start of book club, it started with a block, as it always does in the Rome team.
Yeah.
It was an idea, and I wrote out perhaps we should consider doing this as a concept, largely because reading and writing I feel like is central to Rome. It's how I came to Rome, and I know how important it is for so many people. It feels as though that's the kind of first step. People who are kind of writing assignments or writing books or trying to document their thinking more generally, it feels really central. So we wrote it out quickly, and then Bardia, we spoke, and he took it to Connor, and Connor kind of saw the value in it quite quickly and just said, go for it. So Bardia shipping it fast, which is he's very good at. He got it out within about 3 or 4 days. So first email went out, and then we got a big response, and then all of a sudden we had to work out what it actually meant. So then we kind of settled on the idea of 6 weeks for the first one, which ended up probably being about 7 or 8 weeks. And we ran through chapter by chapter Stephen Johnson's Where Good Ideas Come From. Incredibly complex to start with, largely because it was like at the frontier of multiplayer. There was very little standards we could work to, shared history in terms of what to do. And what made it special was all the people that kind of shared up with a mindset of like, hey, let's work this out. What are we actually doing here? So it was a little bit touch and go in the middle. I think Mike Kramer, who's one of the special people early on, kind of mentioned that he, after about week 3, didn't think that Rome Book Club was going to keep going, because like after the initial positivity, there was probably about 25 people or 20 people in one of the middle weeks. But slowly, just through the effort and energy of the community who showed up, things started to make sense. And there were some real light bulb moments when I saw notes from people like Maggie Delano, Mike Kramer, Matt Brockwell, and it was just staggering, because you just think, wow, that's a new thing about books that unlocks a lot of potential, that books are community, right? Not necessarily just static information. And that was great. And probably then from there towards the end, we got Stephen Johnson to come in, which was a real highlight for the RBC one, and that was arranged by Connor mainly. And that was kind of, again, a moment where you think, wow, this is just something incredibly different to what I've ever experienced. Like, I've read Stephen Johnson's book a lot, knew it well, but to now have the author in with us, being able to show him a shared graph of all our notes on his ideas, that's amazing. So that was a real highlight. And then from there, we kind of realized that some of the technique we were missing was how do we do this collectively in a shared graph, and made the decision to look at Sönke's book, which is clearly like a benchmark for this, a kind of modern like classic in terms of note taking, and kind of has brought everyone's focus back to that. And I think that allowed us to work out what we were missing a little in terms of collectives, Zettelkasten. And that's probably when kind of Beau jumped in too, and said, hold on, I know how to do this better than better than you guys. And he was probably right too. So that's when we kind of through RBC2, it started to look different and feel different, and kind of collective techniques started to emerge, more standards, which were missing at the start, in some ways on purpose, to give people space to work out what was actually needed, come through. And again, it was like the community of people who really made that special. And that's probably when Matt and Beau really started to take it places that I kind of realized like it was better for them to do that, and it was helpful for everyone, and real kind of like lightning rods for the community too. So that's where I'd probably say that's the kind of like the short history of the book club as it stands. And Matt and Beau, I'll probably hand over to you guys to talk about what's happened next and what the trajectory has been from there.
Well, that's exactly where I want to jump in, because I think that's beautiful. You set that up, because I do think that at the end of Book Club 1, we'd read Steven Johnson, which, by the way, is a wonderful book, very interesting, and it's no coincidence that it's one of Connor's favorite books, because if you read Steven Johnson, Where Great Ideas Come From, you will see some of the seeds that kind of grew into Rome, including at some point, Steven Johnson is talking about people way back as far as the English philosopher John Locke, who I think in the 16th or 15th century was keeping a so-called commonplace book. And that's kind of what Rome is. Rome is the modern version of this technology that goes back 400, 500 years. And, we all associate the Zettelkasten with Luhmann, because in our 21st, 20th century imaginations, those two are very closely linked. But the truth is that Zettelkasten-like techniques can be traced back historically hundreds of years. And Steven Johnson alludes to that. And so here we are, we've read this book that Connor recommended, and we're all like, this has got clues embedded in this book. Like, this book contains clues to sort of how we can figure out how to use Rome individually, and maybe even how we can use Rome as a group. And so it was in that spirit that we're like, okay, so let's turn to Sönke's book, because that also is a sort of important book among all the people who've been talking about Rome for the last year and a half or so. And so we went into the Sönke Ahrens book, and Beau, I think that's when you joined the group, right? You hopped in on that first iteration of Sönke, which was Rome Book Club 2.
Well, I was there for RBC 1 for the first 2 weeks. And it was it was just before Matt McKinley took over for Bardia. But that was literally when I sort of dove in with Sönke, with coaching sessions. So it was like, okay, well, I could either do RBC or I could, figure out what the hell this Zettelkasten thing is. And then it was like, by the time RBC 2 came around, it was like, well, Sönke we're going to read through his book. And it was just serendipitous, if anything.
So independently, Beau, you had reached out to Sönke, because I remember you were tweeting about it on Twitter pretty early on, saying, "Hey, I've got a session with Sönke. We're going to try to hash some things out." And I remember I was really excited about it, because I had followed you on Twitter, and I knew enough about what you were doing to understand that you were kind of interested in a creative style of writing, because you were sharing ideas about, writing scripts for characters and thinking about acting and those kinds of things. And so when you said you were going to meet with Sönke, I was like, this is going to be cool, because Beau was going to ask Sönke about a really creative implementation of Zettelkasten. Do you remember when that was, when you reached out to Sönke?
I think it was August, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
August or September. But for me, it was seeing what Rome was, this new thing, and I just had my fingers crossed that, this lightweight structure that Sönke talks about in his book, could actually be paired with this new technology called Rome Research. And, when I jumped on a call with him, it was like, he didn't know. It was the frontier. It's really what it was. And it was, it's a very interesting thing. And, he kept on telling me that it doesn't work for art. It doesn't work for creative arts. It's only like How to Take Smart Notes is meant for people that are students or academics or nonfiction writers. And it was I had an inkling that you could apply this in other sort of spheres,
Genres.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, other
absolutely.
sort of genres. The reason for that, though, was because what is insight? Insight is the same thing that I think creativity is. Because it's like if someone prepares, it's like an artist. It's like when an artist is painting, this beautiful, acrylic painting. It's like they don't know exactly what it's going to look like yet, but it's through the mistakes and through all the sort of creative endeavor where that creativity is born. And it's like I saw a thread between like scientific insight, and I saw the same thread with creative output. And
Yes.
it's the flexibility, in my opinion, that Rome offers that allows for that. And I mean, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, but it's, I was thinking about it on the drive over here, right? Or drive over to the office. And I was like, you know what Rome Book Club is? Rome Book Club is like a potluck party, right? And it's like everyone is bringing, like, whether you know it or not, everyone is bringing like a gift to this potluck party, whether they know it or not. And that gift is when they start writing in a shared graph in Rome. And then it's like everyone gets to feast on everyone else's writing. Like, for instance, when I was in RBC1, I remember I was reading through Maggie Delano's notes, right? And I've told this story before, but I was reading through, like, so we were in like the second week, and we were reading through Stephen Johnson's book, but then she had posted something about Christopher Alexander and fractal theory, and it was and I would not have been able to find that connection unless it was a shared Rome graph where she was writing her notes about where her ideas were coming from, and then that clicked with John York's Into the Woods, which is a screenwriting book, and it was talking about fractal theory and that. And so for me, it was like that was the hook, where it was like, whoa, that's like networked thought, because I saw where Maggie Delano was relating to what she knew, and then I was writing about what I knew, and then it was like that sort of that was juicy, and it's
So
like that, yeah, that was like that, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your flow, but you just hit on two of our themes because we were talking about what are the important things for us to highlight today. And one of the themes was the word that Beau just used, which is insight. And this is the thing that I think is so exciting. And one of the reasons why I got so excited as I was kind of watching how the Rome ZK or Zettelkasten in Rome process was evolving is that I think that what the Zettelkasten is it's a tool that optimizes insight. Because my theory is that that moment, that's like a click, aha, light bulb going off when you realize that something can be codified in a slightly more formal way. That is insight. Like insight is the thing at work when you suddenly realize you've been looking through fleeting notes, you've been looking through random connections and linked references here and there, and suddenly something crystallizes. And to me, that's the excitement of this, is sort of seeing the way that insight can be fostered both within ourselves individually and also across the group. Because like Beau, I too have had moments of sort of reading through these shared graphs and seeing an important connection that I would not have seen had other people not also been engaged with the book and reading about it. I mean, reading it and thinking about it and sharing some of their thoughts into the graph. So this is all what's at the heart. Yeah.
Can I add something to that? To me, it's what we're doing right now is very interesting because, what did Rome research really do? I think there's a lot of people talking a lot about what Rome is and what it isn't. And for me, I think there has to be a little bit of clarity of what Rome research is and what it's done. That sort of turned everything upside down. And what I mean by that is traditionally, all the other note-taking tools have been cloistered inside of these folders, within folders, within folders, within folders. And basically what Rome research sort of pioneered, because there's been many clones that have followed suit, and they think it's just about bidirectional linking, and it's important, right? But I think there's something deeper than that, and that is that instead of the folders, what we're doing is we're saying, it's not a molecule, it's not an atom anymore, it's a neutrino. it's like we thought the granularity was the folder, but in actuality, there's actually something smaller than that, and that's the block. And to me, if we're exploring this sort of graph database, it's not a markdown file editor. This is a graph database. It's a directed graph database that's, in my opinion, is similar to how our brain, like how the connections in our brain works. And so for me, we are literally, as a book club, I mean, you can see through all the different iterations. As a book club, what we're doing is we're basically exploring where no one's gone before. And so, of course, it's kind of messy. It's kind of, not as pretty as we want it. It's not as polished as we want it. But I think anyone that's participated in a book club, especially a Rome book club, to me is where, whether you like it or not, you're putting on this hat and you're saying, I'm a frontiers person. I'm a frontierman. I'm exploring the unexplored. And to me, I think the power of Rome is fine, as an individual. But the power of this book club, in my opinion, is that we're doing it together. And because we're doing it together, all the obstacles that come in the way in regards to, falling back on traditional ways of thinking and organizing, we can walk through it together. So it's like the obstacles that would have come up if we did it alone, sort of like they sort of fall off to the side. And to me, that I think is what Matt McKinley's vision is, and that is something worth striving for. It's worth aiming for. And I think, there's a lot of eyes on like, oh, who's leading the book club? But actually,
it's all of us.
Important people. Yeah, exactly. And it's the core group of people that have come in and week out. And it's all the people that have joined in, spontaneously. And it's just that, though, like, it's all of us that are really exploring what this is, because this is brand new. Like, Rome has only been around for 9 months. This idea of granularity happening at the block, it's like when we had Sönke on here, he was like, whoa. Do you know what I mean? So it's just like, it's scary. It is, because it's like, well, I think someone had mentioned, it's like that scene from Indiana Jones, right? Where it's like, you don't know what the next step is going to be, but you just sort of step in there. And then I just think about, well, Rome has a 5-year believer's plan. What does it mean to believe that when you take that next step, it's going to be there? But anyways, I'm done ranting, but I just want to emphasize that it's the group, it's the people that have showed up week in and week out that has made any of this happen, in my opinion.
Beau, that was a beautiful rant. Thank you for setting me up with the 3 things that I want to talk about next, because I am 100% with you on that the entirety of your rant. That was wonderful. Thank you. So we talked about insight as being one of our themes. The other big theme, of course, is community and how we do things together, which is really the big thing that we're all working on. And then I wanted to also say something about what it means to be exploring the frontier, because that also has felt like a big part of book club ever since last August, when we've been sort of just iteratively just trying to figure out how to make all this work through exploration and trial and error and all this stuff. And what I want to suggest is that there are, in fact, 2 frontiers that we're exploring at the same time. And I just want to sort of break this down a little bit, because I feel like the paradigm shift that we each confront individually in sort of figuring out how to use Rome, which constructs meaning in a slightly different way. The whole philosophy of blocks and links and block references, it's a little counterintuitive. And it feels powerful, and at first we don't completely know why, and often at first people just kind of fall back on the last paradigm for knowledge, organized knowledge, which is essentially, to my mind, Wikipedia. And you can create a perfectly serviceable personal Wikipedia in Rome, but it's still a Wikipedia, which is a different paradigm. And I feel like when you kind of struggle with what it really means to think in this, I would say, very creative and emergent way, which to my mind has a lot in common with what I understand of the practice of meditation, it's a slightly different kind of thinking. So that's paradigm shift number 1. And then what I propose to you is that the other thing we're working on is paradigm shift number 2, which is, can we find ways to help people do this kind of thinking together and just harness the most powerful levels of creativity and insight possible once we have a group of people who are somewhat fluent in what I might call the individual realm. And to be quite honest, I'm excited about this, and I definitely don't have the answers. I have some ideas and some blueprints that we're going to keep working out in Rome Book Club 4 and however many Rome Book Clubs follow. But that is the excitement, the feeling that we're exploring these frontiers together, learning from each other as we do it. Like literally, it feels to me like a day doesn't go by that I don't learn something from this group. By that I mean the extended group. It's really exciting to be undertaking this together and in community. That actually might be a nice segue for us to chat a little bit more about these next steps. Beau, what do you think? Shall we talk a little bit more about the roadmap moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the details, especially just to clear up the confusion of like the shared graph, the agenda, the 2 different times that we're going to be meeting, and maybe just schedule a little bit.
Yeah.
Beau and Matt, can you also talk about expectations? I know that's kind of like big for you, Beau, particularly.
Expectations.
I've always been very liberal, and I love just people showing up and but you're the opposite, right? You're a taskmaster, so talk about expectations as well.
Under the guise of a book club, I think Matt Brockwell hit the nail on the head. It's like, if our thinking changes, right, through writing, and if through better writing we have better thinking, then the better thinking will lead to better ideas, and better ideas will lead to better thoughts, and better thoughts, better thinking, better ideas, better thoughts, better ideas, better thinking will lead to better decisions. Better decisions will lead to better actions, and better actions lead to better behaviors and habits, and then that literally leads to like a transformation. And so for me, I look at it like the goal of RBC4, how to take smart notes, is like the litmus test for me is just to get everyone to write in Rome. And once you understand that what is possible with just writing in Rome, then I let go. And then it's like explosions of transformation. And I'm just kind of like, this is fascinating. So, I mean, expectation wise, just, I would come in with no expectations and just enjoy the ride. It's a roller coaster, but it's fun.
It's a roller coaster and it's fun. And if you put in a little bit, it comes back magnified. One of the lines that many of you remember, because many of the people here in this large assembled group have read Sönke Ahren's How to Take Smart Notes already. And one of the things Sönke writes is you can't pay somebody else to go to the gym for you. That if you want to do the learning, then yes, you need to engage. But what we've found is that even a little bit of engagement in this kind of a community and with these kinds of guidelines, it can feel like it comes back at you many times amplified. And one of the things that's we're working on is that in fact RBC4 we have 2 slightly different cohorts unfolding, and one of the cohorts is going to be operating in a slightly different way, the one that I'm leading, although fundamentally the cohorts are philosophically in alignment with each other. And the group that is going to be reading Braiding Sweetgrass, which is going to be a slightly smaller group because we're sort of capping the size in order to make sure that we can have a cohort-like experience for people. In that group, my entry-level expectation is do the reading and show up and talk with people. And you start there and you get a lot out of that. Because honestly, that was kind of where I was mostly at when I was in Rome Book Club 1. And the thing is, you'll look over your shoulder and catch the energy from someone whose engagement level is a little bit higher than yours, and you'll get excited. And you'll notice, wow, this is a thing that I could do too. I mean, this literally happened to me because I saw Matt McKinley's progressive summarization of how to take smart notes. And I was like, progressive summarization, that's powerful. I'm going to do that for the coil book. And I did it. But I did it because I saw Matt McKinley doing it. And in the same way, I think some of the energy of these styles of working and interacting with Rome, especially the energy of the Zettelkasten, it's like, yeah, there's an activation energy, if I could sort of borrow the metaphor from physical chemistry, right? You got to just get over that little hurdle, put in a little bit. But when you get over the hurdle, man, it's incredible. It is joyful. It is exciting. You feel like you want to be checking into the Rome graph to see what's happening and see what other people are doing. So, yeah, we have what we call the traditional Rome saying of we want to keep a low floor, but a high ceiling. So, we welcome people to come on board and check out the community, even if you're dipping your toes in the water. But I feel pretty confident that if you take that approach, you're going to be excited when you see what other people are doing. And in a certain sense, we're all beginners. Like this whole thing about beginner's mind, it's what has kept me excited about all of this for more than a year. It's like, I'm learning every day. I'm learning every week, and I love it. And I think we can all benefit from that together. So are there expectations? Well, yeah, I mean, show up, be respectful, be creative, offer a little bit of yourself to the group and to the process. But I think those are our low floor, high ceiling expectations. And then, it'll all unfold as we go, and you'll start to see what some of the possibilities might be. That's my rant.
Cool. So what about the dates? Let's talk about like some logistics and details of what's to come. What are you expecting from people? And this is also a big shift, this one, because we're going to kind of start out today like the starting gun and everyone's together. But then it's like an orienteering course where everyone splits up, and then we'll come back together at the end, right? To just kind of see what's happened. But what happens with that? What's the process?
You bet. Thanks, Matt. That's the perfect segue. In this Rome Club, we decided that because we have two groups with slightly different approaches, we're going to run them on different days of the week. So starting next weekend, the group that has been, the cohort that is being formed for Braiding Sweetgrass will meet on Saturday at 1 p.m. PST. It's a half hour later than you just met today, and it's also one day earlier. The important thing also that I need to say about that is that because we are trying to design an experience that can be replicated and scaled up, we're focusing on having cohorts of about 20 people each who are led by facilitators. And in this, my personal inspiration for this approach is very much shaped by Anna Gott and the inter-intellect. That's kind of what we're aiming for, because we want a relatively smaller group of people that you can kind of feel comfortable with and get to know as colleagues and collaborators, but we'll be interacting within a larger graph where we can explore the work of all the people in the large group. And so for logistic reasons, we've had to cap the enrollment of Braiding Sweetgrass. I did offer essentially a VIP pass enrollment to all the people who were members in good standing at the end of Rome Book Club 3. So we've started the signups by offering admission to the people who are already familiar with our way of working. And we'll be able to open up admission to a limited number of further people because we're capped by our group structure. And so what I want to suggest to you is that if you signed up and you're hoping to do Braiding Sweetgrass, there will be an email going out on Tuesday night, the day after tomorrow, about 48 plus 6 hours from now. And that will be the confirmation email that will give you access to the graph and access to the Zoom link for Saturday. And then the actual graph itself for Braiding Sweetgrass will go live on Thursday morning. That's when you can start checking in. You can explore it a little bit ahead of time if you want to. There'll be a little bit of material in the graph. And then we're really getting started as a separate working group a week from yesterday. next Saturday. So the key things to look out for are an email in your email box, whatever you gave us in your indication of interest, that should arrive by Tuesday. And I truly regret that just due to scaling, we can't just admit everybody, but we've decided to go for this model so that we could build a structure that hopefully we can keep growing and growing as we move forward. And if I understand correctly, Beau, the Orange group is essentially open, so everybody should be able to do the Orange group. Is that correct, Beau?
Yeah, so let me just go over the schedule for how
Yeah.
to take smart notes. So for me, it's just learning from the past and learning from what didn't work and to find out what does work. And so how to take smart notes starts officially. Like, you'll have access to the shared graph, that's day one, and that happens next Sunday, the 18th, 12:30 p.m., same time as today. And let me just lay out a little bit about where all this is coming from. So basically, in RBC2, what I did was I spent time doing these coaching sessions, these one-on-one sort of coaching sessions. And what happened was I started seeing these patterns. And once I started seeing these patterns, I started realizing that everyone was having these aha moments. And so what I did was, I took those coaching sessions and I distilled all that information down to like 42 lessons. And so what I'm presenting over the next 6 weeks, starting April 18th, is going to be a daily lesson. And each one of those daily lessons will have a video, and then it'll be accompanied by a guided writing exercise. Now, the reason for that is because a lot of times when people say, hey, here's a writing prompt, there isn't this sense of like engagement. And so what I realized was that if you just add like a nice little instrumental track with a little guided writing prompt, it's so much easier to sort of fall into the sort of state of mind that makes you want to write. And I've realized that that's been very effective. And so each day you'll have each one of these little daily videos and then a daily writing prompt. Now, here's the thing though. It's almost like, algebra leads to this, leads to pre-calculus, leads to calculus. It's like everything that you're learning from day 2 is going to lead into day 3. What you learn in day 4 is going to lead into day 5. By the time you get to day 7, you have to know all the little nuggets of concepts that have led up to that point. And what happens is it starts compounding. And really, by the end of these 42 days, right, you'll understand, like, Sönke's book is very sort of not theoretical, but it's very vague in regards to how to actually apply it. And what I've, hoped for everyone that participates is to be able to see actually how to do it and actually feel what it feels like to go from, a fleeting note to a literature note to a permanent note, and then to see it connect. And so I don't want to give away too much, but I see a lot of people that were part of RBC3 and I see them smiling, but it's not going to be easy, but it's going to be fun. And I say that because it's almost like climbing any mountain. It's like climbing any obstacle, or it's like pursuing anything that's of importance. It's ups and downs and highs and lows. But my goal for all of that is just to make sure that, I can't climb this mountain for you, but I can be like the best cheerleader to make sure that you get it done. And then you also have like a group of people that are doing it with you. And so for me, this is the plan. So Sundays, 12:30 p.m. every week, we'll have a live session where we're going to go over the different concepts and fundamentals, and then review, and then open discussions as well to sort of foster community. Mondays, the following day at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, what I realized was that people weren't reading the book. And so Mondays at 6:30 p.m., we're going to do Rome reading rooms, where basically as a group, we're just going to read Sönke's book. And then again, next Sunday, we're going to open up the shared graph. And then after 2 weeks, so I think it's important to realize that when we're writing in Rome, we're going to go deep. It's going to be vulnerable. There's going to be a lot of sharing that you don't want the whole world to know about. And so after, let's say that after the second week, right, I'm going to shut down. We're going to skim away anyone that's not participating, that's not actually writing into the graph. And what it does is it fosters mutual vulnerability, but it also says, you got a little skin in the game. And when that happens, something magical sort of rises up to the surface where you really feel like you're not doing this alone. And so that's really the whole outline. I don't want to go too much into the daily lessons, but just understand that, it's going to be, just come in with an open mind, and it's not going to be easy, but it's going to be worth it. And I think there's, I'm sure we'll talk to people that participated in RBC 3 to talk about it a little bit more, but that's the sort of general lay of the land. And I just want to impart that if I can utilize the enthusiasm, passion, and joy to get you to sort of just start writing in Rome just with this little gentle nudge, then the rest of it is like that first domino. It's like once you knock over that first domino, then it's like pop, 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 pop. It doesn't take any more energy to sort of continue that along. So that's the sort of general schedule and outline. And make sure you signed up with your email. That's going to be linked to the shared graph, by the way. And how you do that is, I guess, I don't know exactly. How would you do that, Matt McKinley?
So just any of the type forms is fine. I'll just merge them all together and send the list to you and Matt on.
Okay, perfect.
And then we can go from there.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I just want to emphasize. Yeah, I just want to emphasize that I want to if after 2 weeks they're not writing in the graph, and I check, right? Everyone has a daily writing, so I'm checking, I'm reading it, right? And if you're not doing it, bye.
So yeah, the Taskmaster, the world's note-taking Taskmaster, which is really nice. I actually haven't seen this anywhere in terms of online education. I mean, you have to pay for online courses, which cost a lot of money. But just the idea of letting people join through their own willingness to engage, and then also kind of like let people explore, but then ultimately get down to work is a nice model, Beau, which is really cool. Just with the signups, just if you can add your email that you sign into Rome with to the type forms. So if you add a different email, if you've got multiple emails, if it's different to the one that you sign into Rome, when we add you to the shared graph, it won't show up for you. So just add the one if you haven't already. Yes, no Rome soup for you. Exactly the expression. Great. Okay.
I gotta just jump on
the David Goggins of Zettelkasten.
No,
You're gonna write in Rome. You're gonna write in Rome.
I got to just add a couple little small things that Beau, you reminded me of. I do have one expectation, at least a starting expectation for Braiding Sweetgrass, which is that if you sign up and indicate you're interested in the group, please show up on Saturday, or let me know. You can communicate with me on Rome Slack is probably the best channel to use. But if you can't make it on Saturday, please let me know, because we do have quite a few people who are interested, and we have limited spots. And we've decided that if people have signed up and they don't show up on the first day, we do want to offer that spot to somebody else. So we'll keep a running list of openings, and then there may be a second wave of invites on the second before our second meeting to talk about Braiding Sweetgrass. So I just wanted to make that clear. I mean, I am absolutely philosophically oriented towards low floor, high ceiling, but you got to take that first step onto the low floor to get started. And for my group, the first step is to show up. And then at that first meeting, we'll be talking a little bit more to answer people's more detailed questions about how we're going to work together. The other thing that I just want to mention is that also in this round, the Braiding Sweetgrass group will be experimenting with a live reading room, which was an innovation that Beau pioneered in the last round, where people hop on a Zoom call and we're just literally going to read some of the text aloud to each other and talk about it. I think it's a really beautiful extra community builder. We're going to be doing that, and I apologize in advance for people who can't make this time zone, but I just have to choose a time that works for me. We're going to be doing that on Thursday evenings, PST at 7 p.m. That information will be in the email that you will receive, so you don't have to remember anything. Just be aware that this is on the horizon. Again, the most important step for people who are interested in Braiding Sweetgrass is keep an eye on your email for the notification and the information letter, which will go out Tuesday night. So yeah, that's all I have to add on that point. I think we've covered expectations, dates, a little bit about the working styles of the two different groups. anything else to add
Can I?
in this section 2? Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say that, for me, the most profound thing about this note-taking tool, I don't know, this is just a crazy. The most profound thing for me is the community that I've found with everyone here, and hashtag rum cold. But it's also that it's everyone sort of ventures off into the frontier, and then they come back with these like goodies, right? And there's such kindness in this community in that regard as well. It's very selfless, and I admire that the most. And for me, it's if there was a way for me to sort of support that, it's almost like, that story of like when you go to Starbucks and like people buy the coffee for the person next, like behind them. It's that same sort of idea. You're just paying it forward. And I love that I love that part of what Rome research, the community behind Rome research is like. And for me, I thought it was interesting because right after we got done with RBC3, I reached out to someone in the community who does really cool courses. And I was like, hey, RJ, we're starting up Rome Book Club 4 in April. I love what you're doing with your Road to Rome and his courses. And the reason that I know that is because everyone within the community is like saying, oh, this is great. And it's like he's been a staple in the community since the beginning. And so for me, it's, I wanted to just sort of reach out to him. And then it was amazing because RJ, I don't want to speak on your behalf. I know you're here. Let me just see if I can find you. I don't want to speak on your behalf, but yeah, there you go. I didn't want to speak on your behalf, but it was just like I reached out to him and I was like, hey, do you think you could provide, some of your videos to RBC4 just so, if they're a new user, they're more acclimated to what we're talking about? And it was like, the dude made like 7 videos for us. And it's just like, I watched it and I was like, this guy is nailing it. And it's just, he's offering it complimentary, to support and sort of foster this community. And for me, I think that is what makes all of this so special, is that sort of generosity and selflessness. So
can I say more, Beau? I want to say more about RJ and how cool he is. And I also want to riff on what you said about going out and gathering things to bring back. Like that is kind of the feeling I get is that we're a tribe of hunter gatherers and we go out and we find things and we bring them back to the central campfire and we share and we compare smart notes about all the stuff that we're learning. And it is so exciting. And I think if we keep that metaphor that we're here to explore and gather and sort of bring things back, that's how we make connections with people like RJ and whomever else, because they're all out there in our sort of slightly expanded sphere of social connection. A lot of what we just need to do is reach out. And, Beau is very good at asking people for help and asking people if they're willing to contribute to group projects. And so I was just so impressed and happy when Beau said he reached out to RJ. I have to tell my RJ story because I want people to know that I think RJ is one of the people who really gets it. And when I say gets it, what I mean is that I think he understands the paradigm flip of Rome, that he's the real deal. And I think because he has a creative background and he's a musician, that he sort of is in this window of people who are kind of in the same group as Beau, saying, the Zettelkasten, yes, we can use it for analytic scientific work. Yes, we can sort of use it for the work that happens within these particular fields. But there's other genres where all this is applicable. I was talking to RJ and Beau yesterday, and RJ told me this story that I just want to share with you. I don't sort of know the source of the story, but it has to do with a group of engineers who were trying to design the perfect hose to like water a garden. And one approach was to sort of sit down at the drawing table and read all the books about the engineering and the dynamics of water and pressure and yada yada yada, and sort of come up with something. But the other approach is to relentlessly prototype and try this hose versus that hose, see which one works better, and then choose that one, and then try this one versus that one. And that iterative process of evolution, to me, that is the superpower of Rome. Like that is what I do with my daily journal. And I look back at daily journal entries occasionally from 6 months ago, 9 months ago, a year ago. And what I see is just this continuous thing. If you try something, it works, great, keep doing it. Doesn't work, try something else. And just doing that over and over again, to me, that's the spirit of innovation, and that's really the superpower that Rome unlocks. I think we've told you a lot about how cool RJ is. RJ, can you tell us a little bit about sort of your entry point into Rome and sort of what got you started and what's your take on all this stuff that we're talking about?
Yes, of course, absolutely. Thank you for the lovely words and the lovely introduction. I appreciate that so much. I came to Rome a little over a year ago, right at the very beginning. It was a very serendipitous thing that had happened right at the beginning of when we kind of went into pandemic lockdown. It gave me something to look at, so I didn't go completely insane. But I had been a GTD practitioner, getting things done practitioner in Todoist for a number of years, since about 2014. And I had been for a few months. I had read about this to me newfangled thing called Zettelkasten. I'd been reading about it and trying to implement it in Notion, with theoretical success, in the sense that I had a thing that looked sort of like a Zettelkasten, but no practical success. I wasn't actually doing anything with it. And I'll talk in a minute about why I think that was and why Rome was better. But it was actually in a Notion subreddit. I don't know who it was. So thank you to someone out there who mentioned Rome research, because that's what brought me over to Rome. And after using Rome for a few days, interestingly enough, it was quite some time before I actually started using it for Zettelkastening. But I realized right away that I wanted to be in Rome all the time. And I can tell you exactly when I realized it. I was about 3 weeks in, and I was typing a task in Todoist, and I started putting double brackets around something in the title of the task. I'm like, that's not going to work over here in Todoist, but that would work if I were building that in Rome, if I had my GTD system built out in Rome. So that was the first major project I had for myself in Rome, was building that out. I mention that primarily because I think that there's a resonance. I know not all of you are brand new users to Rome in here, but still, I think for those of you who are, and even for those of you who have a fair amount of Rome experience, there's enormous value to something like Rome Book Club as a resource to simply getting you in the flow of using Rome.
Yes.
Just giving you that sense of something to do while you're there. I learned pretty much everything there was to learn about Rome, or at least everything that I've uncovered so far. There are Easter eggs that show up all the time, I know, but just by building that GTD system, I learned what I needed to know about linked references and backlinks and queries and all those kind of things, because that's what, that's the nuts and bolts of what makes my system work. So I think that Rome Book Club then can serve as a really valuable tool for you all, not just to collaborate with each other, but it gives you that power to be in Rome and to be living in Rome and to be thinking in the way that Rome thinks. My little quote that I came up a while back was, once you learn to think like Rome, Rome will learn to think like you. You have to kind of give yourself a little over to the idea that there are not necessarily hierarchies. You're welcome to build a hierarchy if you want, but it's not necessarily that. And we're so coming from our worlds like Todoist and Notion and Evernote. And I mean no disrespect to those things. I had many great years in Todoist. I have nothing against it. It's a good task management app. However, I'm forced to put things in a hierarchy there. I don't have to do that in Rome. When I'm in Rome, I can put my chaos in, work with it, and find clarity and insight on the other side. Todoist does not take chaos as input. I have to know what the thing is before I can make something happen. Before I can make something happen with it. And so that was the thing when I was talking about it. Come back to it with Notion. I said that Notion didn't work for me for Zettelkasten. It doesn't work for me for Zettelkasten because I have to know the shape of the thing that I'm doing before I know what the thing I'm doing is. It's a top-down approach.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. Whereas in Rome, I have the power to let things emerge, to put some tools in, to put things in there and let them emerge. And so what I want to be able to do, and just I'll mention here just briefly what they were talking about, and then we can dance and talk about whatever. But with the course, the Roman way, the little mini course I've put together is hopefully for the new users, and maybe even for those of you who have used it a while, and maybe some value in the a little over an hour's worth of course material there, to just give you those basic building blocks of Rome, the pages, the blocks, literally the blocks, the references. Of course, I have my Indent with Intent video in there, which I saw mentioned down in the chat. It's cool to have something that I'm vaguely famous for in a small area of Twitter and YouTube. That's fun. My wife was making fun of me. I got the email from Matt beforehand that it was called the smoothest voice in Rome, and I showed that to my wife, and then she made fun of me. So thanks a lot, Matt. But in a kind way, But it's those videos are there to help you get your mind wrapped around this world that is not hierarchical of necessity, but is in fact nodes and the connections between those nodes. Because just like at Zettelkasten, it is the connections between that really carry the power. The individual thoughts are important because you wouldn't be able to connect things if they weren't there, but it's the way that they become, they build upon one another, and there are those links, and you can see that journey. All of that, that's what makes Rome so enormously powerful, but it's a thing we have the hardest time wrapping our minds around. So hopefully this, if that's something that's been a challenge for you, or for you're new to Rome, hopefully the little Roman Way course that I put together there will be a good way for you to begin that process of understanding those little things that give you that the tools that make Rome so that you can put just a very little bit in, but get a whole lot of value out. That's what Rome really is.
I was watching it the other day, and what I loved was that there's just so many little things and tricks that you can do in Rome. Like, I didn't know that you could sort the sidebar just by dragging and dropping. So it's like, even if you are a veteran, it's like, or a power user, you can pick up on the things that we forgot about when we were first starting. And it's just, I mean, you lay it out so clearly. And for me, it's just like, dude, you're giving us like an hour's worth of content. Hey, Rome Book Club, hooking you up.
Woo! I want to jump on that too, because I just want to say, like what I just told you when I said that RJ Nestor gets it. It's like he gets it. You've illustrated exactly what I was trying to get at, which is the paradigm shift, right? Because Rome is a system that is optimized for allowing you to discover emergent order. It's about the things that happen when you relax a little bit and allow weak connections to gradually turn into strong connections. And you kind of allow your instincts and your curiosity and your own wisdom to be your guide. And in that sense, it can be a little scary at first because you're like, okay, this is kind of new and unfamiliar. It's a different way of working. But I honestly think that with the spirit of, I think, very generous and thoughtful people like Beau and RJ, you're going to get further along that path. It connects, interestingly, to a little bit of the philosophy of a designer named Christopher Alexander, whom some of you may be familiar with because he wrote this famous essay called "A City Is Not a Tree" that you may have at some point Connor tweeted about it on Twitter. It was one of his influences. The whole thing about Christopher Alexander is that he has these design principles that essentially suggest you do things iteratively, you do things somewhat intuitively, you do things with the sense of the feeling of the relationship of the part to the whole, and you keep doing it in a particular spirit of awareness that holds all those things in mind at once. And one of the things that Christopher Alexander basically says is if you know ahead of time exactly what your structure is going to look like, it's probably not going to be exactly the right structure. It's only going to be the structure that you think you need at that moment in time. But guess what? You're going to experience things while you build that structure, and you're going to want to shift it around a little. And this is the key part, right? This is the philosophy of Zettelkasten. It's kind of the guiding, to my mind, the philosophy of the magical ingredient of Rome. And as you can tell from what RJ has been telling us, he's on this page with us too. We're all trying to think about how do we take very simple primitives and leverage them really powerfully. And that's it. Like, that's what we're exploring together. So big thanks, RJ, for your generosity and sharing a lot of this work that you've done with Book Club for free. That is so cool of you. Thank you.
Absolutely my pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity too.
And RJ does have a longer paid course. How many hours is it total, RJ, by the way? The whole Road to Rome course?
Your Road to Rome is, I believe over 5 hours. I say I believe because I added some things after I released it, and I don't know that I've done the math since I did that. So I know there was over 4 when I started there. But the idea of Your Road to Rome is just sort of a more comprehensive version of Roman Way. So it pokes you to do a little bit more reflection on how do the features and the workflows in Rome really apply to you, and how can you make use of them and adapt them and make them yours, so there's something you own and you really understand and are reflecting the way you work.
I thought the 7-part series that you're given the Rome Book Club was very thorough as well. So I can only imagine how much more comprehensive it's going to be.
Well, I appreciate that. Yes.
So we'll put all the links into the shared graph. And hey, Matt, we were talking about community here, and I just have a question. I see a lot of familiar faces part of your COIL group for RBC3, and my question is, I think we had coined the term Dream Team.
Dream Team.
The Dream Team, and for me, I think being talking heads here, I feel like what if we invited some of the Dream Team to sort of I'm just going to go through the list here. Just ask people from the Dream Team to sort of come up and just join us in the fun that we're having. Alex, I see you there. Julie, Nico, where else? Mike Kramer,
Kate.
Hi everyone. Kate.
Hi,
there
Julie.
You go. I'm looking through the list right now. Where are you? And I feel like if we could can we just open up a discussion with the Dream Team?
There's a few people who couldn't make it. Just to give a little more context for those of you who haven't met the Dream Team yet. The Dream Team were the founding members of the cohort structure that we're using in Rome Book Club 4, and that the COIL group used in Rome Book Club 3. And they were essentially people who demonstrated a combination of interest and aptitude for facilitating a small group, and they were incredible. And the original Dream Team consisted of Kate Foy working with Nico McDonald, Alex Shedrin working with Lindsay Johnson, and Charles Farr working with Julie Freiberg. We had a group of 6, and I think that what happened along the process of working in the COIL group is we started to realize that people were stepping up to take responsibility and participate in all sorts of other ways, and we needed to draw a little deeper on the interest and motivation and just general willingness to help of the community. So we have an expanded Dream Team in this round. Unfortunately, there's a couple people that looks like might have had to step down due to familial and time commitments, but we do have an expanded Dream Team, and I'm very, very excited about this group because we have, I think, 4 of the 6 were able to recommit who were in last time. And we've got another group of people who stepped up from amongst the ranks of COIL, and for that matter, Johnson, and said, hey, we can do this too. So we've got a slightly larger group of facilitators. I have to say one thing about this whole community memory thing, because this is kind of important to me, and it speaks to the value of community. So here we are, right? We're engaged in this process of exploring this so-called new tool for thought, Rome research. We're learning all this amazing, exciting stuff about Zettelkasten, and we're making connections in our graphs, yada, yada, yada. And I just want to tell you one thing that was an aha moment for me. It really crystallized the power of community. And it was that I told an anecdotal story at some point during the discussion of the COIL group. I told a story about how my dad visited me on campus when I was an undergraduate, and he hung out with me and a slightly older friend of mine who was working on his PhD thesis. And as it turned out, we ended up going to the local campus coffee house and sat down, and about 5 or 10 minutes into this campus coffee house conversation, my dad, who happens to know a lot about the field that my friend was doing his PhD, basically listened to him for 5 or 10 minutes and then basically gave him what turned out to be his PhD thesis. It's kind of a cool story. It's like, wow, my friend happens to know my dad, or I've introduced my friend to my dad, and all of a sudden my dad can offer him this super powerful insight. Well, I told this story to the COIL group, and then Kate Foy, who sadly she had to step out the meeting. Otherwise, I would love to have you meet her because I think she's wonderful. Kate Foy said, "Aha, that's a coffee house conversation." And she was exactly right. That was the thing that Stephen Johnson talked about in his book, of people getting together and sharing insights over essentially caffeine, and how it was this big boost to the creativity of the 17th and 18th centuries when these coffee houses opened across all of Europe. And that moment for me was like when I realized, whatever Rome can do, it's what we do with each other and in conversation that is at the heart of it. Like, Rome does not take the place of the community. The community is incredibly powerful, and it is powerful because of relationships, and it's also powerful because of collective shared memory. And that as we kind of work on these projects together, we're learning about each other, and that increases the likelihood that we can offer something to somebody else that they might be able to use. But all that said, it was an aha moment for me because it made me really feel like I'm going to double down on community, because I think community is at the heart of the Rome Book Club, and it is the most important thing, and we need to focus on it and be as mindful about it as we can. And sure, we are exploring this somewhat complex territory of a new note-taking tool that's being used in all these brand new ways, but that's our heart. Like, our heart is in our relationships with each other. And, one way or another, that also is what led me down the track of these 4 books to our 4th book, Braiding Sweetgrass, because Braiding Sweetgrass is essentially about community at its most elemental level. And in Braiding Sweetgrass, Robin Wall Kimmerer talks about community as being fundamentally anchored in our relationship to essentially the natural world and thereby the rest of the universe. So can't get much bigger than that in your definition of community. That's
Matt. Hey, Matt.
Yeah.
Hey, Matt. Can we bring up some of the dream team so they can meet just so new RBC members can
We're
know,
springing this on them. We're springing this on them. I didn't have a chance to tell them, but I would love it if any of the Dream Team folks would care. I told you a little bit about Kate Foy, who sadly could not be here for the whole meeting today, although she was here earlier. Any other current members of the Dream Team?
Well, how about this?
Yeah.
How about this? Just because I wasn't part of the Coil group, I'm looking at the majority of the Dream Team right here. Here's a question for you. What was the biggest takeaway you had with the last book?
Ooh.
That's to Alex. That's to Mike, Nico, Julie.
Hey, Beau, I'm gonna jump in here.
Hey,
everyone. I'm Alex. I am a Russian living in Dallas, and I've been here since Book Club 1.
Hold on. Did you say a Russian living in Dallas?
Yeah, I am.
I love it.
This is like I'm trying to compress the whole introduction piece to key curiosity factors. Anyway, I love the community. I love participating. I marked my 8 months on April 5th as having received this email. Hey, welcome to the first Rome Book Club. We're excited to see you for the first meeting. And the big piece of it was getting to learn other members of the club, and the books serve as a good background and as a conversation topics, but it really is about the people that show up. And you can show up to the Sunday or Saturday calls, or you can show up by just logging into Graph and writing a sentence or two, or putting a little emoji to someone else's blog. But it is that sense of that community and seeing everyone. And I think back to your question about the book that we've read most recently, it is the power of vulnerability and feeling safe enough in this community to be yourself and to share your thoughts unfiltered and be accepted for that and be celebrated for that. And I think that is super powerful, and that's what keeps me going with this community going forward.
It's scary though, isn't it, Alex?
It's scary, but I'm like, it's been 3 seasons of book clubs now, and it's very empowering to be reminded every single time how great the community is and how kind and understanding and supportive everyone is. And I believe a lot of the members who've been in 1 or 2 book clubs before will probably echo that and say, look, this is how we feel as well. And that's the power of that community that's formed here, and the culture of that community.
How difficult is it to become like a community leader, like a cohort leader? Like how does someone become a dream team leader?
You just
member?
do it. You just do it.
You hear that, everyone?
So this is Julie, and I gotta chime in here. I mean, like, look at what Alex just shared. I mean, it's so beautiful. It's like that's why I'm here. Like I joined Rome right before book club one, and I thought, okay, I'm into book clubs. I love reading. I need to know. I need to learn Rome. I was really new to a lot of this stuff. I found Rome through Twitter, which I know probably most of you guys are, you've been on Twitter years and years and years, and I'm like really new to Twitter, and it was like, okay, I'm going to jump into this. And I thought, I love what you said, RJ, about, indent and intent. So it's like, what's my intent being here in this book group? I was like, what? And it was, it was in the pandemic. And I thought, okay, one is I want to learn Rome. This will help me learn Rome. Two is the book itself. That'll be cool. And then three is community. And I'm telling you, what's keeping me here is the community. It is just so, like, I see Mark shaking his head. Yeah, it's so, so cool. And a story, just a brief thing. It's from what somebody said on Twitter. Now that Twitter is part of my life, is like, it's amazing me all the intelligence I'm finding on Twitter. It's like, whoa, this is so cool. This is so cool. And but then I saw this tweet. I don't even know who said it. I wish I had, noted. It was a guy. I wish I had noted his name, because it was a thread about all the smart things that were going on Twitter. And, this one guy said, yeah, but, like, intelligence is a dime a dozen on Twitter. There was so much smart stuff and good thinking. He said, that's not what I'm looking for on Twitter. He said, what I'm looking for is the intelligence with really great people, with people with character and with kindness. And it's like, I mean, it's giving me goosebumps right now. It's like, that's what I feel like I found in this Rome Book Club community, is like so many smart people with good thinking. And then they have good hearts. They are really kind. They are, just like Alex said, being vulnerable. And, I feel like Matt and Beau are such exemplars of it. And just people stepping up to do all kinds of stuff. And so I still have those three things of, learn about Rome. And I guess, maybe another one, which is so tied up with Rome, is writing, getting myself to write more, and, creativity and insights and all of that. And then the content of the book and the specifics of that. But community is, like one of my mentors says, the first among equals is the community. So it's so cool.
Julie, here's a question for you here. I know that you're big into intellect, and I love what Anna God is doing. But how does what we're doing in the book club sort of, how does it add that extra sort of spice, because we do have this sort of writing tool that we're working out of as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. It just feels like so many more threads through the graph and through the writing. And, the salons are like, if you really dive into it, you start to get to know people at inner intellect. But it feels like there's something more there's an ongoingness. And the I is the inner intellect. They do have series, and I haven't done any of those yet. So that is an ongoingness, but I really appreciate the ongoingness. And there's something about with the writing that makes a really difference. I mean, I think it was Matt who many book clubs ago, or maybe it was Matt McKinley who said this. I don't know. One of the two Matts said, it's a book club for writers. It's a book club for writers, right? And Yeah, and I just got to say, Beau, I remember it was in one of the first book clubs, and you were on it, and it was like, oh my God, this is a man who gets excited about stuff.
I'm glad you brought that up, Julie.
A little bit, just a little bit, just a little bit.
When we were talking about this, yeah, sorry, Julie.
I love that about you, and yeah, I just, it's kind of rare. It's very attractive to me, men who, who show. Even like Alex show. I could see that you were really moved when you shared. And I just got to say, Matt M., I love seeing your little guy there on your lap.
I think no, hold on, what's going on here? Okay, there we go. Nico, hi.
Hi there. Well, just briefly on the Coil book. I think one thing I learned is that the value of discipline and training and working together in intense ways to inculcate behaviors. So there were examples with US Marines of working together in a particular way that allowed them to then operate together with very little communication or very little, so certainly verbal communication and so on. And also I think, the book is interesting because it kind of indicates that styles of group organization and leading people can be taught and inculcated and so on. We had criticisms of the book around it, picking up all the positive examples and kind of limited scope of its examples and so on. But yeah, I think it was very, very useful in lots of ways. And actually, I think we pulled out a lot of ideas from it that could actually be implemented in one's work in different environments. On the being a cohort leader, I think maybe Alex is being a little bit, what should we say? Well, modest makes it sound immodest, but I think being able to let people talk, being able to make sure that everybody, gets to come in, knowing who hasn't said anything, trying to connect ideas together, trying to, get down to the discussion of serious ideas as quickly as possible, and if possible, trying to tie things together and so on. And yeah, I think those are some of the key aspects, and also just being able to, I guess you need a certain amount of ability to quickly strike up a rapport with people, particularly, when people are coming together for the first time and you don't, nobody knows each other and so on. So techniques for doing that's valuable.
Nico, here's a question for you here. Just for people that might be interested in RBC 5 and 6 and 7, how much of a workload or how much bandwidth does it take to step up and help facilitate as a dream team member?
I don't think that much in a way. We did do some planning and so on about the overall structure of the sessions, not just the the breakouts and so on, but I don't think it takes that much. It is more you just it's a question of being able to kind of do things on the fly and feeling like you can do it. But most people I've met in the community are personable and able to engage with other people and good at listening and good at teasing things out or tying them together and so on. So I don't think it's a big hurdle, to be honest.
And what have been some of the, I guess, rewards of stepping into that and being a service?
I guess you get to shape things a bit, and get more out of something if you put more into it.
Ooh.
And I think to Julie's point, it's very it's very engaging or rewarding, engaging with people who are themselves are open and inquiring and keen to meet. I'm sure this isn't unique, and we've talked a lot about interintellect and so on, but it is quite remarkable that across the world, so many people from so many different countries and cultures and so on can come together and find a common ground intellectually and collaboratively and in spirit. And I've emphasized quite often that how given we live in very contested times intellectually, particularly in the United Kingdom and the United States, that it's good that people are able to put ideas and, if you like, a kind of humanistic approach, above everything else. I know that, Matt Brockwell and I would have different views about quite a lot of things, but, we're interested in ideas ultimately, and we're interested in trying to pioneer how we, interrogate and share knowledge and collaboratively, make progress, if you like. So, that trumps everything else. Trump with a lowercase t, obviously. And that's how it should be, but that's not how it is. I'm pleased that Julie finds life on Twitter so beatific, which it is and should be, but most people wouldn't be as positive as she is in their experiences. So I think we need to keep that very positive, intellectual, humanistic spirit going in the book club.
I'd be interested in hearing from, like, maybe Mark McElroy led us a couple weeks ago where we did a review. He's part of the Dream Team, and he led us in this incredibly creative review of our process. So I'd love to hear you say some things, Mark.
Yeah, that was a great session Mark did.
Thanks, Julie. It was a great session because people participated so freely in it, and they told us a lot about the things they liked, the things they thought they lacked, the things they longed for, and the things they learned. And as you can imagine, that was a really rich session. The main thing I think I would mention about my own experience is I'll tell you 3 things that I know you expect, but I'll pair them with 3 things that you might not. You obviously will have, number one, a very deep experience of reading a book, but you may not expect what it's like to read a book through, if there are 120 members of the group, 120 lenses on that book and its content. So, for example, you might just be trolling along thinking, wow, this is a great story about how all these teams work together. But then your co-readers will start pointing things out like, why are all these stories about white men? Or why are some of these stories celebrating teams that work really efficiently at killing other human beings? So these are the kinds of things that happen when you read as a group. The second thing that might come to mind is you're probably used to the idea that we're going to be working in a multiplayer graph, and that alone is a bewildering experience at first. And then you very quickly get at home there. And I found that after Rome Book Club, when I go back to my own graph, it's kind of lonesome because I miss all these other voices and people chiming in and searching every day for what some of the folks I've kind of become a fan of or saying day by day by day as we go through the work. And then I guess the last thing I'd mention is about relationships. I think you'll probably expect to meet a lot of interesting folks and a lot of people in the Rome community that you've maybe seen doing courses and offering workshops. What you might not expect is how, even though this is a strictly digital platform, there's real intimacy, especially in your cohorts. When you're in those small groups and people start to talk and share, there are connections forged there and a kind of community built there that I really didn't anticipate could be done in a digital space. So I'm very grateful for that. And I have to say the withdrawal symptoms are pretty hard to deal with in the weeks that pass because you say, wait, where's my daily writing prompt? Where's the excited message from Beau? Where is Matt's laughter? I'm missing all these things. Where's Julie? Where's Kate? Where's Tracy? And it's kind of lonesome after that. So enjoy the things that are coming up, but be aware that there may be unexpected side effects as a result of working with Rome Book Club.
I love it. Unexpected side effects. Thank you, Mark. Wow. Yeah. Any thoughts from anybody else, either in the previous Dream Team group or the slightly expanded group of people who've been working behind the scenes? A small group of whom met, in fact, yesterday to start clarifying and pinning down last remaining details before we launch.
I just
yeah.
I just also want to express, like, I mean, I love the community aspect of it, and I say don't be scared of intellectual giants either, because my interactions with Mike Kramer have been phenomenal, and this dude is oh my goodness. Like, if you need someone to, like, go, I wonder if this works, like, you want to sharpen your blade, like, Mike Kramer is the guy. And it's just, I love that, where it's, to be able to be exposed to people outside of, my own circle of influence. And Mike, do you want to add anything to that? I mean, he's day in, day out, week in, week out, like RBC 1, 2, 3, 4. Mike's been there.
Thanks, Beau. You're making me blush here. I wanted everyone to know that you are really in for a wild ride in a good way. I'd been doing Rome for, when was Rome Book Club 1? Was it August? Is that what we said?
It was August. Yeah, I went back and checked the dates this morning.
So I thought I was doing it Zettelkasten for about 6 months, but I wasn't doing anything until I did Rome Book Club 1. And then I said to myself, wow, I'm just spinning my wheels. And just being around other people inspired me, not because anyone told me to or I had to, but it's like, yeah, there's incredible power here. And then it just grew. Rome Book Club 2, Rome Book Club 3. And each iteration, I thought, yeah, I can do this on my own, but there's something about, like Mark just said, there's something about being around other people, and they give you a little idea, you give them a little idea, and it just grows. And what I would tell everyone, this is what I experienced. Rome has changed the way I think qualitatively, and obviously for the better. And here's something else I'll say. It really is what you put into it, but it's worth putting in a little bit at the beginning, because then it starts to snowball. And then you get more out of it. Well, I got more out of it than I ever thought I would. And now you hear everybody say it's about connecting the notes, but it depends how you connect them. You can do a lazy connection, and you're not going to get much out of a lazy connection. At first, I felt very uncomfortable connecting my notes. But the more I did it, the more I realized there are degrees of quality in how I can connect my notes. And now, when I'm just got the habit of looking for high quality connections, I'm just telling you, it's if you're new to this, you're in for a while. And just go in with an open mind. And I'm telling you, it's a new way to think. It really expands my view of the world.
So you start to get to know people a little bit, and I just know Mike a little bit, and I want to know him more. But this is a theme that I have heard you say before, and I just am excited to this idea of it's about the connection between notes. It's not about the notes. It's like, or it is about the notes, but it's like it's a whole other world when you go to the connections. So I want to be on the tail of your comment with that, Mike. I really think that that's something that I don't know, you're leading the way on that. So love that.
None of that was scripted, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. This is just people's, like, they had no idea that they were going to come up and say anything. So it's just, I think there's something about just organically letting those opportunities happen and just people talking about it. That's just fascinating. Hey, Matt Brockwell. So what I was thinking was like, okay, so now that you've heard from everyone sort of talk, I think, you know, Matt, should we just open it up for just open discussion for the next 30 minutes here?
Yeah, fine by me. I mean, we've got a really deep bench of expertise and experience here in the room, and people who are ready to share and talk about their own experiences in book club. I think is great. Yeah, maybe it's time to just open up the floor.
So if you have a question, maybe raise your hand. If you look on the very bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll have little reactions. If you don't see the reaction button, just click on the 3 dots, and then you'll see reactions. And if you do raise hand, there we go. David.
I just want to say this is exactly what I was hoping for. Like, this is what I feel as I'm starting to use Roam over the last 2-3 months, and the energy you guys have, and then like the huge vision for like combining our thoughts. I'm super excited. I'll leave it there for now.
Yay! Thank you.
Oh, hey everybody, this is Alan from Las Vegas. Yeah, I'll just kind of echo what he said too. I mean, super awesome. I mean, seeing everybody's enthusiasm and experience. And I mean, I teased Beau about this on Twitter, but I mean, he's kind of like Kevin Flynn from Tron. I mean, he's discovered like this digital frontier and he's showing it, and there's this big community. So yeah, super psyched to move forward and just learn a ton and see how I can use it to just change everything.
I just want to say, like, it's what you're going to add to the conversation that matters.
I wanted to just throw something in real quick because it came up in a few people's comments just momentarily before. I think just with Mike Kramer, a different way to think. So this is something that I've been pondering for a while. And I, as anyone who follows me on Twitter knows, I'm a big fan of this British psychiatrist and scientist named Iain Mcgilchrist. And he's written about this idea that there are sort of a more right hemisphere dominant and a more left hemisphere dominant mode. And the right hemisphere mode, which this is very broad brushed. If there are any neurologists or neuroscientists in the audience, you will know that this is a slight it's a broad brush, but that the right hemisphere engages in a kind of thinking that's more associative, more linking, and more creative. And that in fact, part of what feels to me like is going on when I use Roam is it's not so much a new way of thinking, but it's the activation of a kind of thinking that is not sort of primary. To me, that is the exciting part. It's like within each one of us, there is some capacity to be more creative, to be more resonant, to think in a slightly different style. And we kind of get out of the habit because day-to-day life just doesn't require it of us. And it's interesting to me that part of this realization has happened, at least for me, during this great global upset of COVID, because that's the thing. It's like for the last 12 months, my routines have gotten turned upside down and I have to, quote unquote, think different. And so it's a very interesting moment for me in time. Like these global factors are converging with my exploration of this new thinking tool. It's fun. Anyway, I just wanted to put that out there because I do think one of the things that I'm most excited about is essentially Roam as a vehicle for empowerment. That in fact, thinking in this slightly more creative, slightly more associative way can feel genuinely liberating. And I mean that. And I think, a lot of people who really engaged with the how to take smart notes, especially in the last round, really felt that feeling of personal empowerment. And yeah, that's all. Just want to throw that out there. And thanks, by the way, gentlemen, for both of the last comments. I feel that enthusiasm and I appreciate it. So thank you. Anyway, enough from me. I silence myself now.
Cheryl has her hand up. Do you want to unmute?
Yeah, I got it. Hey, that was quick. Hey. So especially given what Matt just said and what everybody has said, and given that this is an incredible tapestry of people around the world, I'm curious how you all in a group, or what the plan has been or will be to work with disagreement, because especially if we're moving into an arena where we're challenging ourselves to think in different ways, there's ways that can end up being a very uncomfortable place to be. And so I'm curious how that's my question.
I think if I can jump in here, I think if you were in RBC3, you got a glimpse of it when we had the sort of shared Zettelkasten. But how I look at it is, I think disagreements are like here, but the thinking that led to that is so much deeper. And if I can look at someone that I might disagree with, but I can follow their thoughts that led to that idea, what it does is it opens up so many more tendrils of places that I can connect to. And it's like if I can focus on the things that I do relate to, then it's less of this separation in the disagreement as much as it is enlightenment of seeing someone that it's like, I'm going to use an acting idea, but if you give a script to 10 different directors, they'll interpret it 10 different ways. And it's the same idea. It's like with this kernel of an idea or this kernel of a fleeting note, like where it goes spawns in so many different directions. And if anything, I have a sense of hope that because I have a sense of hope that it's going to cause this this is very, my hopes and dreams, I guess. It's if the surface is no longer the place we're judging people, but it's the kernel of the idea where we're seeing people and we can see how their thinking has led them to these other places. If anything, I feel like the sense of compassion and the sense of empathy that we have for others is going to grow. And I almost feel like as we're exploring what network, like Rome is not just a note-taking tool, it's also a note-taking tool for networked thought. And I think, getting little glimmers of this throughout these book clubs as well as throughout these, random Zoom calls with random people in the community, when they take the words out of my mouth of what they see the future of education and knowledge building, I'm latching onto that,
Well, what that sounds like to me is that part of the natural function of Rome, because it is the way it creates an interconnection between all the different points, is that when you're having discussion that's facilitated by that, instead of everything being polarized, like it's either black or white, you end up with this interconnection that is inherent and therefore is integrated across all the various components and all the various iterations of those components. So in a certain sense, it's not even disagreement or conflict as much as it's an awareness that there's a contrast, that there is sort of a difference between the way it's expressed here versus the way that it's expressed in some other place.
Love this, Cheryl. Love it. I agree with you. This is another shout out to Iain Mcgilchrist, who talks about this sort of need for critical distance. And that when you can take an idea and just take one step back from it and consider it just as an idea that's linked to other ideas. And of course, it's also going to be linked to other emotions if it's a political idea. And yet just that act of stepping back and sort of looking at it as sort of an interconnected fabric. That's it. Like that takes away a lot of the charge. And definitely that's my hope and Beau's hope, and I think our community hope. Of course, in practice, like actually working together as a community is a big part of feeling like you can trust other people. It has to do with seeing them and talking to them and getting to know them day after day, week after week. And that's just a thing that we felt has been building all along and is something of our safety net, is our feeling of, belonging and acceptance and respect for one another.
Thank you.
Roy, I noticed you've had your hand up, Roy Temple. Did you want to add anything on this?
Yeah, this may be a little meta to Cheryl's point, but just in my experience from RBC3, look, I think part of it is approaching some of this with some humility. And what I mean by that is early on in Rome Book Club 3, I had moments when I was pretty sure that, Beau was just wrong like he doesn't have this figured out. And, you know, it was okay to even say that out loud to Beau. He doesn't have that much ego investment. He doesn't have an ego investment. He's got a lot of heart and a lot of hard work and a lot of thinking that's gone into the system he's developed. But he doesn't say, I'm right, you're wrong. You can't, how dare you question me? And what's interesting about the course of RBC3, just really quickly, is I had to eat it several times over the course of RBC3, where I thought I'd figured something out Beau didn't know, and only to know that I thought Beau didn't know it because I didn't understand it yet. Once I understood it, he was right. I was full of it. But I will also say that there were some developments toward the end where Brother Spirit had some observations that initially Beau had said, well, I'm not sure that's needed. I'm not sure that's useful. I think there's a different way to handle it. But over the course of the discussion, everybody approached it with sincere effort to contribute. And when Beau saw that somebody had come up with something that really was an extension of his thinking, there was no bigger cheerleader for it. He couldn't get that video posted fast enough to point it out. So
that is so true.
That's a model of what you're talking about, Cheryl, in my mind, even though it's not on a content level. At a process level, it was just a beautiful experience to be part of. And I say that as probably the counter example where I maybe seemed like, oh, are you sure? I was a little too confident at many points and had to eat that. So not because anybody shamed me, but because they let me participate long enough to find out my own ignorance and what I'd learned in the meanwhile.
I love that. I love that. And I feel like we've all been through that. We've all been through having to sort of set aside the thing that we thought was true in order to see the other thing that might be more important. And I absolutely appreciate that. And the sort of the more we can see one another sort of doing that kind of thing, the stronger we get. So thank you for that. I know Rick Krause has had his hand up for a little while. Rick, and then also I see you, Brian Arrigo, but I want to ask Rick if he's got something to add right now.
Well, I could just say what Roy said. You know, I mean, I think a lot of what Roy said holds true for me as well. I pushed back pretty hard at some points, and I still maintain that I don't need music to write by. But you know, actually, Paul was so accommodating. He made a separate version without background music.
That's awesome.
Without Muzak, just for me. No, I'm sure he did. I'm sure that there were some other people who might not be able to multitask, especially musicians. You know, but anyhow, I did put a message in the chat indicating that Matt, you said, you know, basically what you have to do is show up. For anybody that's new to the book club, you have to do a little more than show up. It can be, I mean, like I said in a little message in the chat, although I kind of don't participate too much in the chat because I'm afraid I'm going to miss what somebody's saying, you know. But anyhow, I said, you know, for you newcomers, be prepared for some really great discoveries and delights, but know that they won't come easily. You know, you have to do some significant work in order to gain those insights. And but what's great about it, you know, and I said it's not your traditional book club, because it also entails learning some of the intricacies of Rome, you know. So it's kind of like a twofer. You get the best of, you learn how to use the tool in a way that facilitates how to learn in general and how to think and how writing and thinking relate and are actually inseparable. So yeah, I mean, I just have nothing but good things to say about the experience. I hope that at some point I'm a little overextended right now. I had hoped to take your course, Matt, your book club this time, but maybe next time around.
Woohoo! All right.
Or you could lead one.
Ah! Ooh.
Qualified, but And who knows? I don't know. My days are numbered, but I'll pass the baton right now. But thanks so much, you guys. What a great community. It's been a real treat. And
Thank you. And just to briefly echo and amplify something you said, Beau and I and RJ were talking yesterday, and the thing about Rome and Zettelkasten for me is they're strawberries and chocolate. Like you've got these two wonderful things, and you can actually put them together and make each one more powerful because of the other. And that is also exciting. Anyway, enough for me. Brian, you've had your hand up for a little while. Floor is yours.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Trying to think of a way to say what I want to say without giving anything away, Beau. But in terms of what's going to come up, but just along this theme of
photographs.
That's what I was going to talk about.
Don't say anything. Don't say anything.
How'd you know? Yeah, so the RBC3 group will know, they'll get this reference. And so what I want to say is that, along this theme of dealing with a different way of thinking and how you see that, I never really knew how to write in a way where it was top down. Formulate an argument, produce a thesis, write your paragraphs in support of that. That's all in your head first, and then your writing comes down, and it's a struggle. But the way the lessons are put together and the way you learn how to work with the Zettelkasten from a bottom-up approach, that to me was the revelation for how to think differently. And because as you were saying, Beau, the thinking leads to the writing, and the writing feeds back on the thinking, and you do that through the writing. It's a different way of writing, and I didn't know how to do that before. And so that was encountering a different way of thinking, but it wasn't in any kind of combative, argumentative way. It was just a discovery that was made along the way that was very fun and cool and worth it. And so, yeah, that's just what I wanted to say. I'm hearing a lot of people talk about differences in thinking and how that's handled. This is not a gladiatorial arena for debate. This is just a process of self-discovery and a safe space to do that. And so that was my big takeaway. So just wanted to say that. So thanks.
Thank you, Ryan. Heather. Hi, Heather.
Hey, Beau. How's it going? How's it going, everybody? I thought I would just chime in with the piece about elaborated writing. It was something I hadn't really done till it was one of those things that's so simple and seems so obvious, but I hadn't really done it till I learned it from Beau, and it was really awesome. So that's one of the takeaways of the course. Hopefully it's not a spoiler, but it was a real game changer for clarity of thinking. For me, I kind of had a different issue. I love to connect ideas, and to me, thinking clearly was never an issue for me. Maybe that sounds weird, but writing clearly was. I often get feedback that my writing is all over the map. I just have way too much stuff to say, and structuring my writing is a challenge. So that'd be interesting if kind of other people in the community struggle with the same thing, and if they'd like to have a conversation. I feel like Beau's system really did help me, but there's still some stuff to get better at. So I just love this community that everyone's like so open-minded. It's weird that we hadn't really broached the issue of disagreement before, because I think everyone's coming to this from a truth-seeking perspective. We should always be concerned when, there isn't disagreement, but I think in this case, it really has to do with true open-mindedness. So I just wanted to chime in with those thoughts.
That's a nice delineation right there. I love that. The open-mindedness.
Can I just actually add something quickly there with the disagreement thing? And I think it's been also that you get to see like conversations at the block level. So you can deconstruct an argument to the level of a block by just clicking the block references and seeing how 2 or 3 or 4 people have referenced the same block, which gives you perspectives that you otherwise wouldn't have. So yeah, I see that as the disagreements, but they're not. It's more of a richer context for conversation as opposed to just seeing dichotomies or a polarization.
I see Yina's hand up. Yina, did you want to contribute?
Yeah, sure. I think just to add on to what everyone was saying, I think one of the biggest takeaways for me was the distillation of a crystallized thought. You know, I think we've seen some of the content creators out there that talk about idea refineries. And I just really didn't think about how Rome and the Zettelkasten and our book club really helped me think of a thought refinery. So we have like 6,000, like I think it's averaging from like 6,000 to 10,000 thoughts in a single day. So when it comes to distilling it down, it takes a very methodological approach towards breaking it into very clear concepts. So when you see people that think clearly and speak clearly, I feel like it's like they've done in their head what we do via Rome. And
Wow.
I struggle with that a lot, like doing it in my head. And I think Heather actually is a great example of someone that can do that really well when she communicates. But through Rome, I found a channel to be able to express that in writing. And I think that ability, or that platform to give us this ability to refine our thoughts in a very structured way was just absolutely mind-blowing. And I think it's kind of like what, I forget who said it, but like it changed the way I think. And I don't think it'll ever go back.
I love it, Iain. Thank you for bringing that up. What you just said actually resonates with some things that Beau and RJ and I were talking about yesterday. Because RJ, as you know, is a coach. And of course, Beau also has a coach's mentality. He's been coaching. That's what he does. He gets people to think about their own behavior and change it in the ways that they want to. So what we were talking about yesterday was this notion that that kind of prep work that you do on the inside or in your Rome graph, that's the foundation for then what you communicate out to the world. And it's both the communication that you do verbally, like when we've thought about a topic a great deal and then we're able to improvise on that topic in front of a large group, but it's also the work that we do to become clearer and better writers. And that link, that particular thing that we talked about yesterday with Beau and RJ and I was, start by facilitating your inner communication. Like if you start by imagining Rome to be a device that brings about some kind of internal clarity, coherence, and resonance, then you're going to be able to expand out from there. And you will notice that outer communication starts to feel a little bit more fluid and easier, and that you're sort of using that prep work, so to speak, so that you have your distilled thoughts on hand when you need to share them, whether it be verbally in a context like this one, or in a paper that you're writing, or a letter to the editor, or whatever it is you may be working on. So yes, thank you. I love that. Inner work leads to outer results. Indeed.
If I can bounce in there, hopefully I'm not speaking out of turn here, but I just building on that communication being at the core of what you do in Rome, that's at the core of what I do in my productivity too. You know, when you're in an organization, you understand that for that organization to do things well, you have to be effective communicators in that organization. But we don't often note that we need to be an effective communicator with ourselves if we want to get the things done that we intend to get done. And so there's a level of, you know, when I talk about GTD or whatever, it's not all just GTD in Rome when it comes to productivity. That level of being able to communicate clearly to yourself, what is it that I intend to do? Not just what do I want to say, but what I want to do. That's a big part of my work in Rome as well.
We've got about another 8 minutes here. Just wanted to open up the floor. You can raise your hand or you can just unmute yourself.
Wesley Chambers, I see your hand up.
Thanks, Matt. Good afternoon, good morning, good day, everyone. I joined Rome last summer, I think, along with a lot of people on the call today. And I was immediately hooked. I have ADHD, and I found out last year, along the same times I stumbled upon Rome. And I was amazed because I finally found a tool that was almost built for the way that my mind works, and a way for me to deliberately direct my attention to an external process and like organize different types of information to move it around and then like extract sense from it. So I signed up, threw everything into my graph, but didn't find any use from it. It was very nice to look at and very pretty, but it was at the beginning of this year I watched Beau's video with Robert Haysfield, and him walking him through his Zettelkasten, and I felt like I'd struck gold. And I had signed up for Rome Book Club 3, but life happened, didn't join, but then I started watching the videos and I saw, holy crap, like he is showing them how to like piece it all together, because I think one of the great things about this Rome community, that there's a plethora of different thoughts and theories and principles about how to use Rome and how to build your own knowledge garden. But I felt that it was so scattered, but I felt like Beau and his process was simple, was lightweight, and it was almost a structure to facilitate emergence. So I'm really excited for this 4th iteration. And then Beau, I have a question for you. I have devoured like 70% of your YouTube videos. The one with Brother Spirit, will you be incorporating Zettel questions into this 4th iteration of the book club?
Well, it's interesting because I'm probably not allowed to say this, but I feel like, so me and Joel Chan had a 3-hour call, and am I allowed to say this? Yeah, why not? It's RBC, right? So me and Joel Chan, I feel like Joel Chan has come at it from this way, and I've come at it from this way, and Brother Spirit added to all that as well. But I look at it like, I just happen to see this like thing, right? But it's what everyone else builds on top of it, right? That really matters. And that's what I'm looking forward to. And so I'm going to incorporate everything that I've learned. You know, it's like, this is going to be the best yet. Like, I'm going to put everything, all the input from all the people that sort of, clarified and crystallized ideas in RBC3 is going to be fed into RBC4. And you also see RBC3 alumni in maybe some of the videos or in some of the live sessions. So it's definitely about this sort of like synthesis of all the different ways of approaching it. But I have to say that it's not that, it's not like I created this thing. No, I just happened to stumble upon it. And it's what the community builds off of that I'm excited about. Because, Brother Spirit discovered like that. He discovered Einsteinian physics. Like if I was Newtonian physics, it's like he discovered Einsteinian, and now it's like we're waiting for the next, And so that's the sort of idea of how it all builds together. But I think it's also a complete analogy of what Rome is like as well. Because if we think about what network thought is going to look like, if we think about, how we're building upon what other people are thinking, then it's like boom, boom, boom. And then it's this compound interest that happens. So yes, will I be incorporating it? Yes. But I'm approaching it, just so everyone knows, I'm approaching it where I have all these ideas of I have the 42 lessons already outlined, but each day I'm going to show up and it's going to be organic of what's going to be presented. And I feel like that's the sort of art of it all as well.
I want to just briefly chime in there, because this story about incorporating questions into the Zettelkasten to me is a very interesting one. It's part of what I was struggling to try to do on my own alongside sort of the work we were doing in the COIL group of reading the COIL book, because that was what captivated me right at the end of Rome Book Club 2. I was like, well, Sönke Arendt says the Zettelkasten should quote unquote feel like a conversation, but what is a conversation that has no questions? I mean, you need them there. And Beau and I had some back and forth discussions about this, and Beau correctly pointed out that, well, the questions do get sort of wrapped up into your processing, that implicitly those questions are in there in the things you think are fleetingly interesting and also often are implied by your Zettelkastens. But we just couldn't figure out what will we do with these special statements that we want to throw a question in with all the other the assertions in a Zettelkasten. And I think Brother Spirit's breakthrough was so simple and so beautiful and so obvious, which is basically you just throw it in. You don't need to privilege it. I mean, you can do things with CSS to make it look different. You can do whatever you need to do in your own organizing method. But the real aha moment was that I had been sort of sitting there trying to think of an entire separate structure for questions, like trees of questions, a separate Zettel question graph, yada, yada, yada. And ultimately, the logjam broke with Brother Spirit's observation. And because Beau and I had literally been talking about this the week before on a Zoom call where I was showing him a prototype, and I was like, well, what about this? And he's like, nah, that wouldn't work. You'd have this problem, blah, 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 whatever. It's like Beau just like came storming into the conversation with Matt McKinley and said, Brother Spirit figured it out. But I love it that what he figured out was essentially the obvious part, that it is as clear as the nose on your face if you're willing to look at it. It's like you don't have to do anything special or complicated or add layers and layers of complexity or figure out how to tag the questions or put them in this or that folder or link them in some new fancy way. It's just like, trust the process. Trust it that the Zettelkasten is a conversation, and that's it. I mean, that was sort of this big aha moment that I think Beau and I have been alluding to, which is also a beautiful story about how things just emerge out of the group experience. And a few of us were struggling with this question of, well, what do we do with questions in our Zettelkasten? And when the idea came along, I think Beau just recognized it, and we all did. It's like, oh yeah, that's it. That's what we've been working to try to figure out. Sorry, I'm rambling, but I do think that this is a nice sort of side story about our process and how we've discovered things as we go that we weren't expecting to discover. Anyway, enough from me. Carol, you've had your hand up for a little while.
Hey everyone. Basically, I just wanted to say thank you for the last book club. I felt very lonely once it finished. To begin with, when I joined, I felt very out of place because I'm a 60-year-old grandmother, never had any formal further education. And I assumed a lot of what was going to happen would have been sort of far above my knowledge, but I got a lot out of it. And by the time we finished, I felt like I'd been to Rome College. It was brilliant. And then since it finished, I suddenly feel as though I know how to write when I didn't before, although I've written all my life. I've just, with the Zettelkasten and my own notes, it's suddenly gelled, and I can suddenly just go, oh yes, I need that note. I need that note. Okay, where am I going to put that? I'll shift that around, put that there, write it, done. And it's brilliant. So I say thank you to Beau, and I couldn't wait to get back in here and come home.
Yay! Wow,
So
that is so beautiful.
So
you.
I want to thank everyone that showed up today. I mean, I like Matt, we are on time here. I want to make sure that we respect
Perfectly
everyone's
on
time. Yeah. I think just listening to everyone and just participating in this, it really does ignite something in me as well, where it's just like, yes, we're not alone. And I will, this is being recorded and I'll post it on Twitter, just so, we have access to it, and then shared graph next week. Yeah.
And big shout out from me to Beau and Matt. Like incredible energy and spirit, and love what you've made RBC and the community that you've built and continue to foster. So best of luck, go well, explore the new territories and seas that you'll find, and hope you bring something great back.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. You want to unmute? Unmute all? Unmute all? Unmute all? How do you unmute?
Yeah, we got to do the jazz hands, Beau. Jazz hands.
Yeah, the jazz hands.
Beau.
Thank you again, everyone. It's so good seeing everyone.
Bye.
Thanks all.
All right, see everybody.
Thank
Take
you
care.
again, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.